So today we'll be doing a review about Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. This book is one of my favorite books. It actually was the first book I read about financial, and it changed my mind and my view about how financial works and what are the assets and what are the liabilities. So this book starts with explaining the difference between employment, self-employment, business owner, and investors, which they go by for employed, S for self-employed, and B for business owner, and I for investors. The difference between the four of them is very simple. Employed is basically someone who has a job. So employed is simply somebody who has a job. Self-employed, you own a job. And a business owner owns a system that works for him. But an investor makes money work for them. So the money is the one that's working for them. If you want to be financially successful, you basically have to know the difference between assets and liabilities. Assets, the way he explains it, it's a very simple way, like a 9-year-old can understand it. He explains is that assets basically is anything that puts money in your bucket. Liabilities is anything that takes out money from your bucket. It's not about how much you actually put into your bucket. It's how you use it. Because most of people, once they add more money into their bucket or they start making more, they add more liability and more expenses on their bucket. So the point is, for you to manage your money, it's very simple as that. In order for you to become financially successfully, you basically have to have an income that covers more than your expenses, and that your assets are generating those income for you. So you're not just depending on one resource, basically. So let's say, for example, you own a house. If that house is not putting money into your bucket, you're actually owning a liability. You're not owning an asset. But let's say, for example, you still own a house, but you're actually not living in this house and you're renting that house, and this house is generating enough money for you to cover the expenses of the house and also to cover your rent. That house is now as an asset. So I know it's more complicated than this, and he explains it more further in his book, so I really recommend you reading the book. The one thing he always repeats, if you want to increase your expenses, you have to increase your assets column. Because asset columns are always like this. They should not be equal. Your liability should be at the bottom and your assets should be more than this, or at least double it. So before you invest into something, ask yourself, is that thing is really going to put money into my pocket, or is it going to take money out of my pocket? The number 2 mistake that everybody does is basically they work for somebody else to solve their problems, but they never work on their own problems. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with working for somebody else if you're not a business-minded person. You don't have to be a business person to manage your own money and become successful. But you have to be willingly to educate yourself about how to manage your financial statements and how to add assets that generate income for you. So he gives an example in his book about McDonald's. We all, when we hear McDonald's, we know that it's a food industry, right? And I thought the same as well. But then he talks in his book that in McDonald's is not in the food industry, it's in the real estate industry. And that was something that it shocked me. I was like, what? But he goes on and he explains it. So before they open a new store, they basically make sure that location is the right location and it's going to generate them income, and it's either a corner or in a location that it's basically in a good, if they later want to sell it on, it would generate them money. And that is the point of having like McDonald's in different places at different corners. And if you go to McDonald's, you mostly will see that McDonald's is always at the most busiest places or at the corner. It's just something that catches your eyes in a second. You cannot ignore it. Also, a mistake that a lot of people do is basically they depend on the government and on their company to solve their financial problem. The one thing that he talks about mostly as well in his book is that do not expect the government or the company will solve your financial problem. You have to be the person that you solve your own problem because it doesn't matter. You are the most educated person on earth. If you do not know how to manage your financial, you will always be having a problem with the money. You would always have to educate yourself on how to manage your money, how to add more assets, and how to decrease your liabilities. And always remember if you want to increase your expenses and liabilities, you must increase your assets first. In this book as well, you will learn how taxes works. Again, I'm not a taxes person. When I went to business, I only went for marketing and I really hated taxes class. But he explains it in this book very simple. He explains how to use the taxes to your advantage instead of using it in disadvantage. He teaches you basically how to keep most of the money into your bucket because that is the goal. The goal is to keep majority of the money in your bucket and then reinvest it and redo that circle over and over again. And that's how you become rich. In order to become successful and to become rich, you have to be able to manage these three things and leverage those three things to your own good. So the first thing is leverage of cash flow, which he explains more in the book, and how to leverage systems. The third thing is how to leverage people. So you must be able to know how to management and leverage those three things in order for you to become a very successful. So the last thing that he talks in his book about is how to manage and how to overcome your fear, laziness, obstacles, anything that basically drags you down, which at least we face one of those obstacles. There's a quote that he really adds in his book that I really love. It says, for most people, the reason that they don't win financially is because the pain of losing money is greater than the joy of becoming rich. That quote really resonated with me because I was like, yes, that is the most thing that I always fear as Madonna, that I always fear that I will be losing the money. What if I lose the money? What if I cannot remake it? But through life, I have learned that basically you would never learn until you fail. So the point is, he teaches you how to do it without that much of a risk. But again, at the same time, you must learn by be willingly to mind that you'll be losing some. Because otherwise, you will never become rich. There is no safe investments. In a summary, though, I really recommend this book because it's, like again, I said, it was one of my favorite books and the first book that I've read about financial and how to manage your financial. It's really amazing book. It walks you through with so simple steps on how to manage your financial needs and how to become rich. And again, I'm not telling you it'll be easy. He's not telling you it's going to be easy, but it will take time. You always have to be willingly to educate yourself on how to manage more money and how to become rich because that's the only way that you'll be willing to become rich. So if you even just looking to learn how to manage your financial and become more stable, this is a really good book to read. I'll be doing more book reviews, and if you want me to read the specific book that you want me to read and give you a review about it, just comment in below and let me know which book you would like me to read and give a review about it and kind of a summary of what it's talking about. Also, subscribe below and make sure you hit the like button to see more of my videos and make sure you turn on the notifications so you can see all the videos that I upload. See you in the next video.